Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for taking the time to join us first thing this morning. I believe we have over 600 people signed up to this event, which is just amazing, just to see so much interest in the honours system. And I really hope that this session encourages you to make a nomination and hopefully it demystifies the process for doing so. Just quickly introduce myself. I'm Will, and I'm the Communications, Diversity and Outreach Manager in the Honours and Appointments Secretariat in the Cabinet Office. So we're the team which run the process behind the Queen's Birthday and New Year's honours lists. And I'm also one of the organisers for this virtual week of events, so I may be plugging various other events that we have coming up as well during this call. Just to say, there'll be time for questions at the end, but if you do have any questions as we go along, then please type them into the chat box. One of my colleagues will also be trying to answer them as we go along, but there will be time at the end to pick these up. Great. So over 2,000 people are awarded an honour every year, and every single one of them is nominated by someone who took the time to get to know the person, gather all of the necessary information, and write a fantastic nomination. And the honour system is really our society's way of recognising that person in the community who's always going above and beyond, and really just a way of saying thank you to those who have made an exceptional contribution to society. And I'll take a guess, and hopefully it's one of the reasons why you've joined today's call, that we all know someone amazing who's deserving of an honour. And so today I'll be sharing with you how you can nominate them, along with some tips on what to include in a nomination. We'll also be hearing from Victoria Abbott Fleming, MBE, who received an honour in 2021, and she'll share with us what it feels like to get that letter in the post telling you you've been awarded an MBE, and what her investiture experience was like as well. And we'll also be hearing from Pippa Britton, who is an independent honours committee member, and she'll share with us what being a committee member is like and what it involves, and perhaps also some tips for making a strong nomination. But before that, I'll outline a bit more about how the honours system works and what the process for nominating is. And I really hope by the end of this session that you'll be equipped not only with the skills to make your own nomination, but also to encourage and advise others in your workplace, community, family, and other networks to get involved as well. So to start with, why do we have an honour system? Well, the short answer is because the Queen wants us to. The slightly longer answer is that the honour system was originally established to recognise the achievements of extraordinary people who have made a significant contribution to society. And we're mostly going to be talking today about the honours that come out of the Order of the British Empire, which is the most used order, and I imagine it'll be the most familiar to you. So that's MBEs, OBEs, CBEs, and knighthoods and damehoods. So that order was created by King George V, who wished to honour those who had served in a variety of non-combatant roles during the First World War. And a common question we're often asked in the Secretariat is, what is the role of the Prime Minister within the honours system? Well, Prime Ministers set the strategic direction for each honours list, which means they give a steer to those who are putting forward nominations and to the independent committee members on what kind of recognition they would prefer to see. So to clarify, the decisions made on who does and who doesn't get an honour, they're made by the independent honours committees, but this is very much guided by the Prime Minister's priorities. And so it's just helpful to know what those are. So Mr. Johnson, for example, wants honours to be awarded on a merit-first basis. So really for those who go above and beyond, and not just people who are just doing their job or have been in their job a very long time or have reached a certain grade, very much people who have demonstrated going above and beyond in everything they do. He'd also like to see representation from the length and breadth of the UK, so very much in line with the levelling up agenda, which I'm sure a lot of you will be aware of, and really see honours for those who have provided outstanding service with clear and specific examples of how the results have delivered real change to people's lives or had a positive impact on the country. Individuals must also represent the values which reflect the UK and recognise the exceptional role that the UK plays on the world stage. Also innovators and entrepreneurs, especially those in the tech sector and working within startups. And then he'd also like to see individuals who have worked to support the Union and all 4 constituent nations of the United Kingdom. So just helpful to keep in mind when you're making a nomination. And changes over the last 20 to 30 years have slowly transformed the system into what it is today, and making it much more transparent, democratic, and representative. So, for instance, in 1993, John Major ended the act of automatically awarding honours to people in certain jobs, and he also introduced for the ability for the public to make nominations. And about 50% of our nominations now come directly from the public. So that was a positive step. Some years later, in 2005, Tony Blair brought in the independent selection committees, which we still use today and which I'll speak a bit more about shortly. And Blair also introduced the practice of passing the list straight to the Queen without adding or removing any names. And then some years after that, in 2012, David Cameron reintroduced the British Empire Medal, which was suspended in 1993. So he brought that back to recognise more people at a more local and community level. And he also, in 2014, introduced the Diversity and Inclusion Group, which is now the Diversity Committee, which is chaired by Dame Louise Casey. And its role is very much to make the honours list more representative of UK society. And I'll speak about diversity shortly. So that's your very brief history lesson of the honour system. I should probably mention that we do have a history of the honour system talk at 2:45 p.m. today. So if you are interested in hearing more than just the snapshot I provided, then do check that out. But now we'll look at the honours process. So there's two ways in which we receive nominations. We get about half directly from the public, which is either in paper or through email or through our portal on gov.uk, which we'll share in the chat as well. We've just recently redesigned the portal to make it much more easier and seamless to use. So do have a look at that. All of these nominations from the public come directly to the Cabinet Office's honours team, and then we send them on to the corresponding government department. There's no deadline for public nominations, so they can be made at any time. We receive about 10,000 inquiries a year, which leads to around 3,000 nominations. And the other route we get nominations is through government departments. So government departments will ask for nominations every 6 months from some stakeholders they work closely with. So for example, that might be supermarkets sending their nominations to the Department for the Environment, Food and Agriculture, so DEFRA, or businesses sending their nominations to the Department for Business, Enterprise and Industrial Strategy, so BEIS. The departments then sift through all of the nominations and then send them up to the appropriate committees who consider each of them in turn. And the decisions from these committees are then passed on to the main committee, which is made up of all the chairs of the other honours committees, which is then passed to the Prime Minister and then passed over to the Queen for formal approval. And so as you'd expect, nominations go through a sifting process. So only the best and strongest candidates are selected for consideration at independent committee level. So it's a very competitive process because there's a lot of people obviously doing amazing work throughout the country. But who are these independent honours committees? So there are 10 honours committees, and they're all made up of independent people like Pippa, who will be joining us shortly. And they all take their roles very seriously and are all very much experts in their respective fields. And they are fixed-term voluntary posts. So the committees that we have are sport, economy, health, science, arts and media, state, education, community and voluntary service, public service, and parliamentary and political service. So if you make a nomination and it gets to the committee stage, it will go to one of the relevant committees. And so I just want to spend a couple of minutes now talking about diversity, because it's important that the honours list reflects society. And one way of ensuring this is to make sure that it is proportionally representative of people from all backgrounds. And I'll start by saying on a positive note that our most recent list was one of the most diverse yet. But we know that there's definitely more that we need to be doing in this area. So if we were to look at the gender breakdown from the most recent list, which was the birthday list published 2 weeks ago, while women received 51.5% of total awards, 44.8% of recipients at CBE level and above, so the higher levels, were women. So a bit more work needs to be done on making that a bit more equal. 13.3% of successful candidates came from an ethnic minority background, which is one of the highest yet, which is important because in 2014, the diversity and inclusion group set a target of 10% of awards going to those from ethnic minority backgrounds by 2020. And this has actually been achieved with the past few lists being well over 10%. However, similar to women, the number of people from ethnic minority backgrounds at the higher levels is still lower than what it proportionally should be. So still some more work to be done there. Other groups that we're targeting include people with disabilities at all levels, entrepreneurs and those in the startup space, retail sector. We get very few nominations for people in the retail sector, so I'd like to see that improve. Those in the technology sector, and also young people. We get very few nominations for and from young people, so we definitely like to see that improve. I think the youngest recipient on the recent list was 11 years old, so age is definitely not a barrier to being nominated for an award. And just to show you those stats that I was talking about from the most recent list here, so these percentages are based on recipients who returned the diversity monitoring form to us, and about 10% of recipients don't do that. So that's the caveat. And if you are interested in hearing more about diversity, we will be having a diversity panel and conversation on Thursday at 12:15 p.m. And there's some fantastic panelists on that, including Len Sisse, OBE, who'll be discussing this in more detail. And just the last stats I'll show you. Don't worry, there's not any more coming up in the presentation. These are the regional stats from the most recent honours list, which show the regional spread of recipients against the percentage of the UK population for that region. And overall, we see, not just in this list, but in previous lists too, we see low numbers of nominations for those in the Northwest, Northeast and East Midlands in particular, whereas London, the Southeast and Northern Ireland as well tend to be overrepresented. So we'd really like to see the honour system become much more regionally diverse, and it's a big aim for us in the Secretariat. So I'd really encourage you to nominate people from regions which are underrepresented, because without increasing the number of nominations for people in those regions, we're unlikely to see this picture start to change, and we'd really like to. Cool, so that's just a very quick introduction to the system and the way it works. I now want you to be thinking a bit more about how the honours system recognises different levels of contribution. And so that we can get a sense of how differently people can make an impact, I'm going to give you a few real and recent examples of people who either received honours at a British Empire Medal, MBE, OBE, CBE, damehood, knighthood level. And I want you just to have a guess at what level of honour you think they received. So we'll try and make this interactive. I know there's a lot of people joining, so just put it in the chat bar. But before that, I'll quickly run through each of the honours levels and what level of contribution we'd typically expect to see for each one. So I'll start from the highest to the lowest, and then I'll give you some examples. So to start with, to receive a damehood or a knighthood, we'd expect you to have had a preeminent contribution in any field of activity, which is usually at a national level or in a capacity which will be recognised by peer groups as inspirational and significant nationally and demonstrate sustained commitment. And that sustained commitment is really key when it comes to damehoods and knighthoods. It has to be over a long period of time to show impact. Just down from knighthoods and damehoods, we have the CBE. So a recipient of CBE would have to have had a prominent national role of a slightly lesser degree, conspicuous leading role in regional affairs through achievement or service to the community, or a highly distinguished, innovative contribution in his or her area of activity. Then just below CBE, we have OBE, where we'd expect someone to have a distinguished regional or county-wide role in any field through achievement or service to the community, including notable practitioners known nationally. And then just down from an OB, we have MBE. So an MBE, we'd expect to have had an achievement or service in and to the community, which is outstanding in its field and has delivered sustained and real impact, which stands out as an example to others. And then just below MBE, we have the British Empire Medal, so BEM, which is to get that, you'd expect to have had an achievement or contribution of a very hands-on service to the community in a more local geographical area. This might take the form of sustained commitment in support of a very local charitable or voluntary activity, or innovative work that has delivered real impact, but has been relatively short, so 3 to 4 years in duration. And just to say, presentations of British Empire medals are made locally. So with the other awards, you'll be invited to maybe Buckingham Palace or Holyrood or Windsor Castle to receive your award from a member of the royal family. British Empire medals are awarded by Lord Lieutenants, which are representatives of the Queen. So, but I think you still get invited to a garden party. You still get to go there. So those are the different levels. And now I have 4 examples of recipients at each of these different levels. And I just want you to have a guess at what awards you think each of them received. So to start with, she brought the UK's rate of fatal injuries down to the lowest in the EU and led significant improvements in the rates of work-related ill health and working days lost as a result of health and safety failure. She led the work to redefine health and safety priorities, influencing key stakeholders as well as her peers within the industry. So have a think, what level of award, knighthoods, CBEs, OBEs, MBEs, or British Empire medals, and maybe just type it into the chat. Give me some time to do that. So this is yeah, cool. So we've got a couple of knighthood CBs, MBEs. So this is a damehood. So a knight or dame candidate would have made a preeminent contribution in any field, usually at a national level. Their work will be viewed as an inspiration to others, and they may have influenced their peers or industry or the nation through their work. So I'll give a second example. She has been volunteering for a local hospital radio station for over 46 years. She coordinates a team of 48 volunteers and organises creative fundraising events for the station. She also regularly goes around the wards asking patients for song requests and talks to them so they do not feel isolated while in hospital. So what one do we think this is of all of the awards? So we've got, I think, MBE, British Empire Medal, MBE. It's good. Yeah, it is an MBE. So MBE recipients will be making an impact, will have had a long-term significant impact, and stand out as an example to others. So 3, I'll just do 2 more. So 3, he has made an enormous contribution in raising the profile of social mobility across the country and has worked hard to develop best practice in tackling social mobility through education. He was the CEO of the Southern Trust, which under his leadership raised £35 million to improve opportunities for all. He recently became the UK's first professor of social mobility. We have a guess. So we've got OBE, CBE. Good. So yeah, and sort of the higher levels, yeah. So it's an OBE. So an OBE recipient will have had a major role in any activity, including people whose work has made them known nationally in their chosen area. So it's an OBE. Okay, we'll do one last one, and then we'll hear from Victoria, who's joining us. So he's extremely proud of the transformation of his home city, passionate about his local community, and about everyone having chances to learn and realize their potential, whatever their background. Since 2007, he's dedicated his time to supporting and building his local football club. So as the last one, what do we think? So we've got a couple of BMs and MBE. Cool. So yeah, this is a British Empire Medal. So BEM recipients will have been awarded for a hands-on service to the local community. This could be a long-term charitable or voluntary activity. So yeah, hopefully that's just giving you a bit of an idea how the honours system recognises different levels of contribution. And those are a few real examples. But to get a better idea, we're going to, before we get into sort of the nitty-gritty of what to include in a nomination, I just want to introduce Victoria Abbott Fleming, MBE, who I'm really excited to have on the call. And she's going to give us a bit of a glimpse into what it's like to receive an honour. So yeah, thanks so much, firstly, for joining, Victoria. That's really appreciated, and to share your experience. I wondered if we can maybe start with you just telling us a bit about what you received your MBE for.
So I received my MBE for services to charity. I set up a national organisation supporting patients and families with a rare disease called complex regional pain syndrome. And I've been doing that now since 2014.
Wow. And what was the reaction when you received the letter letting you know that you'd been awarded an MBE for your services to charity?
I was actually really shocked, little stunned. Wasn't sure whether it's actually for me and they'd got the wrong address, but I think I was really honoured. I really was, and actually couldn't believe somebody had actually nominated me. I couldn't believe it.
Amazing. And we do have that a lot. Recipients telling us when they actually get it, like, has there been a mistake? Is it for me? So that's really nice. And how is it keeping it secret for a month? Because you have to keep it a secret when you first get it.
Yes, the letter said that I couldn't say anything to anyone for a whole month. And obviously I'm in the house with my husband, so I had to tell him that something, because he'd seen my tears falling down and he thought something was seriously wrong. But it was I thought at first it was going to be really, really easy to keep it quiet. I thought, I won't need to tell anyone. It shouldn't be a problem. But the longer it obviously went on and closer it got to that month, I was getting more and more excited. And I'm thinking, I can't say anything. Really want to say something. And we'd organised to go out to dinner to on the day, or on the evening, I should say, when it was announced. And that night was difficult, very difficult indeed, to keep my face from smiling. And everyone's like, well, I'm sure there's something wrong with you, but no, it was really, really exciting. Hopefully will come back to us. Hopefully one of the back team will come back. As I said, I was the founder and chair of a national charity called Burning Nights CRPS Support, and it is a national organisation, and we really couldn't be anywhere without the volunteers that we have. And when I received the letter, I was more humbled, the fact that somebody had nominated me to say that they recognised the work that I was doing, even if I may not have recognised it myself. It was really, really humbling. It was, and to realise that other people had seen the work that we'd done and are still doing, because after the award there is still work to be done, and I still carry on with the charity work even today. Life is, it's changed a little. I feel people do respect what I say now, and hopefully Will's back.
Yes, I'm back. Sorry, left you running the talk. Apologies for that. Very much. I think we're all used to tech problems happening now for the past 2 years. So really sorry, we just had a bit of a scramble trying to get that back running. So young. Well, thanks, for sharing. And I wondered, you could tell us a bit about what your investiture experience was like, Victoria. And I don't know if you've just started talking about that, but it'd be great to hear a bit more about when you actually went to receive your award and what that was like.
Was like, so after I got the letter and it was announced, we'd been told that it could be a while, because obviously the COVID backlog, and we knew that it was not going to be soon, but it actually came quite quickly. So my investiture was February this year, 22nd of February, and it was Her Royal Highness Princess Anne that was there on the day, and it was a day I think that not only I will remember, but also my husband will remember as well. It was surreal, but it being with all those other people and hearing their stories as well was just as much excitement as, and everybody was so happy for everyone. It wasn't just it's our award. It was almost like a collective, and we were all finding out about each other and what they got it for, and it was amazing. It was it's a day that, like I said, I will never forget. I won't.
It sounds like a very inspiring, nice environment to be around. Just an incredible group of people. And who was the royal that presented you with the award, and what was that sort of about?
The royal was Princess Anne, and she was so lovely. It was like talking to someone that you'd known for years. She was really pleasant, and she knew. Obviously, she'd been briefed what we'd all got the award for, but she wanted to know more, and she seemed interested, and that was the bit that I was quite shocked about, because I thought they're never going to remember everybody's what we all got it for and why, but she did, and she wanted to know why, and what I was doing, and what the organisation was doing, and how many people were helping, and it was, like I say, it was there almost 5 minutes, which seemed really long compared to other people, but it was just like a friendly chat. It was lovely. It really was.
Amazing. And I don't know if you were just answering this just while I was off, while we had the tech issues, but it'd be nice to know sort of how's being awarded an honour impacted you, and now that, because you were awarded in 2021, I guess, what's that been like since?
Yeah. So at first I was not sure whether to put it after my name on all the documents, and on like social media, should I put it on, and but everyone said, well, no, you've achieved it, you've done that, and you deserve it, so why not use it? And I find now that people almost seem to respect it more, and respect the work that we do, and generally people say, well, you must have done something.
I think it was now.
What did you get it for? So I think we've lost Will again. But I think, I mean, like I said, it was really exciting to be there, and running the charity. I can see one of the questions that I run the charity full time. I'm not a civil servant. I never have been. I used to be a barrister before I had an accident at work that caused the condition that I now support, that caused complex regional pain syndrome. And I that's what I do, and I don't, it's a full-time role, and I do humbly thank everyone that not only nominated me, but also those that wrote supportive letters. I don't know who nominated me. Even today, I still don't, and I don't know who supported me. Again, not sure who supported me, but I believe that we're not supposed to know who nominated us. I think if you know them, then they may say something, but I still don't know to this day who nominated me. But I am seriously honoured for everything that people have written, and life has changed a little. Like I said, it's a bit more people do listen to what we have to say, and we are getting more national coverage now. And the local papers, as soon as it was announced, the local papers were really interested in finding out about the charity. And yes, I would love to know who it was, but that's one of those things. Unless one day they may tell me who nominated me, but at the moment I don't know. But it's something that even the smallest communities and the smallest acts of kindness, even people who can help and support others, these nominations are that, and they do make a difference. They really do. And I'm still shocked, really, to this day that I would be nominated, because I never thought that the work that I was doing for patients and families would ever even be recognised by anyone. And I believe that the application form is fairly extensive, but I think it's well worth doing in the end, because it's one of those things that we've got, and I'm a female, so I'm in the category of diversity. I'm also disabled as well, so I'm a double above knee amputee due to the condition that I have. And it's just knowing that people recognise what you do, and how you can help people. I don't know why they have the rule of who we don't know who nominated us. It would be really interesting to know what they said about me. But it has made a big difference. I'm still me. I'm still Victoria. I'm still the founder and chair of a charity, national charity. I still do that day in, day out. That hasn't changed, but it's the recognition. And if you've got the smallest organisation, the smallest group, or even if you've been helping a neighbour through COVID, anything, because people do recognise the work that you do. And these nominations, these honours are certainly something that are useful. This is, it really is. It is difficult, and I'm sure there are people out there who could help in the nominations. And I know, Will's back.
I'm so sorry, Victoria. I feel like you've been running the show. I think our internet is just not being great today, everyone. So I really do apologise. Victoria, I won't keep you for much longer. I think, and really, really sorry, everyone, for this. If the tech is too bad, then we can look at putting another session in as well. Victoria, thanks so much for answering some of the audience questions. That's been really appreciated. And I just want to say, obviously, it's a very well-deserved award, and you're a very deserving recipient, and your work is incredible. So thank you so much for joining us and sharing your experience. That's really, really appreciated. And I can see some really nice comments in the chat as well. So really, really well done. Thank you. Sorry you've been left to lead the session as well.
Hopefully no one got bored with what I was saying. So my apologies if you have. So
I don't think so at all. So no, thank you so much. And hopefully the tech will work seamlessly from now on, and then maybe we can bring you back at the end if there are any more questions. But thank you for now so much. That's really appreciated. So we'll try now and invite Pippa, who's also been watching this, and hopefully I won't just leave you on the call as well, if that's all right. Hi, Pippa. Thank you so much for joining us as well. So Pippa sits on the Honours Sports Committee, and I wondered maybe if we could just start, if you could tell us what you enjoy most about being a committee member.
Well, I'm going to start with Victoria because she did a fantastic job, and really brought a bit of a lump to my throat, because the reason that I do what I do is because of people like Victoria, because we've got such an amazing breadth of people in our country. And I always feel that this is our way of being able to say thank you to them, because, you know, we all know our country runs on volunteers, and it's the one thing I'm really passionate about is how do you say thank you to all of those people in your local community? You know, the guy who teaches you swimming and has been teaching kids swimming, you know, for the last 40 years. How do we say thank you to those people? And I know that the honours system sometimes feels like a bit of a complicated space, and the way to apply, I think, you know, people fear it will be complicated or there's too many forms to fill in. But I think that's something that we can work on in the future. But it's really what I care about is all of those people in the community and what difference we can make to their lives, not just their lives, but, you know, if you've got the guy or the woman who's been the swimming teacher for all of those years, then actually, you know, if they've got a partner, they're the one who's left at home. And, you know, and so it's not just the person who's giving up their time, it's the way in which it affects their family and their community as well. So yeah, I'm sorry, I get very passionate about it.
No, I couldn't agree with you more. I think that could be what they make the honour system could be amazing. Literally recognising the people in the community who won't expect to receive this recognition for their work, and we should almost have an honour recipient in every community, I think. But no, that's amazing. And maybe you can tell us a bit more about what your role involves as a committee member. It'd be interesting to know. We also went over a little bit what committees are, but yeah, what is your role within sports?
Yeah, so well, it's to start with, I guess it might be interesting for people to know how I got to be a committee member. Yeah. And there was an advert, like a job advert. It's a voluntary position. I applied, I got interviewed, and they offered me a position. So and that's based on my background. So I'm Welsh Paralympian, and so I can bring something to the sport committee, you know, from that. And twice a year we get together to discuss all of the nominations and the citations that we receive. There's like hundreds and hundreds of pages. I love to read them because it's I can't tell you, it's like a real feel-good factor, I suppose. It's not often that you get the opportunity to sit down and find out about people who are in, I don't know, Ayrshire or Carmarthen or Taunton or London, who are all doing things, particularly as said in the community, but really amazing achievements, and to be able to share a little bit in their lives and to understand what's really going on in Britain, I guess. It's yeah, it's time I enjoy giving up. And I also enjoy the sort of the debate that we have in the committees, where we don't, we don't always give people the level of award that they get nominated for. So you might have somebody who's nominated for a BEM, comes in front of the committee, and the committee say, oh, but you know, the impact they've had has been so amazing. It's not just, you know, their local football club, it's much wider. And so we end up having quite a lot of debate about, is the person getting an award at the right level? And I enjoy all of that as well, because you can start off from a position of maybe not everybody agreeing, but then we come to this kind of consensus that we feel is the best for the person who's going to be getting the award.
No, amazing. And I guess maybe just like feeds on from that. What do you look for in a nomination? What sort of makes a citation maybe stand out a bit more? For you?
Yeah, so I think you kind of briefly touched on it with the with something that is one of the Prime Minister priorities, and that is the it's not enough just to do your job. So I think that's what we tend to look for over and above. And one of the things that you know that we don't always see as members of the general public is, if we see somebody who's doing their job really well, and then perhaps we see they get an award, we don't necessarily see, well, perhaps they've run 8 marathons and raised, you know, £100,000 for the local cystic fibrosis charity or whatever it happens to be. So it's something about, I think there are a couple of things. One is the over and above stuff that people do that the public don't necessarily know about, but we would see in a citation. That makes a big difference. And the other is whether or not people have overcome challenges. So Victoria was talking to us earlier, wasn't she, about how she's an amputee, and and yet still she's set up a charity and she's run a charity. Now it may be that the public see that she's running a charity, but they don't think about the challenges she's had to overcome in her personal life in order to get there. So those things are the things that probably make the difference, but they're not necessarily the things that other people would know about. So some of that personal sharing, I guess, when you're writing a citation, that understanding of people's, their family life or their community, or challenges they've overcome or impact they've made that is extra, I think are all things that make a difference to us.
No, that's amazing. That's really, really helpful, and I'm sure for the people in the call as well. Maybe that feeds off that as well. What are maybe some of the challenges that the sports committee, for example, faces?
Oh, numbers sometimes. Because, and I mean, this may be true for every committee, of course, I don't know, but we get quite a lot of numbers at certain times. So, for example, when the Olympics and the Paralympics are on, then you don't want to lose people from the community because you're thinking about well, how many awards are there that can be given. But I think some of the other challenges for the committee, probably in common with lots of committees, about where do we get the nominations from, and are there certain areas where we're getting more nominations? Are there certain groups that are giving more nominations? Is it that we're just not advertising ourselves? I don't know if advertising is quite the right word, but is it that we're not making it simple enough for people? Is it that so what's putting people off? And I talk to lots of people and they say, oh, doesn't the government have to do that? And you're like, well, no, the government doesn't have to do it. You can, if you think there's someone in your local community, then you can go online and find out the information. And there is quite a lot of information about words that is a section, I think, on what words you can use. And so I think there is some support, but it's like all of the government website stuff. There's such a lot of knowledge. It's about how do you find the bit that's the most helpful to you. So it's about numbers, either too many at some times or not enough at others, and then spreading them through the UK, making sure that people understand, that if they want to make a nomination, they can.
No, that's amazing, and that's hopefully what this event is there to help do. And just on your point, I think you're right about the government website and where you can find the information. Maybe one of my colleagues can just post in our specific honours website into the chat as well, which might be helpful. And I guess I can see, I think, 261 people on the call. Is there anything you would say to anyone watching today on why they should make a nomination, nominate someone for an honour?
Well, I think first and foremost, I would just encourage I was talking to somebody yesterday and saying exactly that we should all start thinking about the people we want to say thank you to, and how do we publicly say thank you, because we all say thank you, don't we? We all say thank you to I use the swim teacher as the example. We all say, thank you very much for teaching my kids to swim. But actually it's about that public recognition. And unless we all think about, who we could nominate, how we can nominate, and why not just give it a go, then, we've just heard Victoria and how proud she was, how humbled she was, what a difference it made to how she feels about herself and her charity, and the voice she feels that it's given her charity. So that, that's a really wide impact, isn't it? That's like, she's got an award for the amazing work she's done, but it's like putting a pebble in the pond, and now she's actually having a greater impact because of that. So you just don't know what impact you're going to have on people's lives. You just don't know if you give a BEM or an MBE to that swimming teacher, who's perhaps, from a Welsh small community somewhere up in the valleys. I have to say that because I kind of live there. So, you know, you don't know, do you, whether there's some kid who then becomes inspired themselves by the fact that their teacher has been publicly recognized in this way, that they then become inspired to go on, volunteer themselves and to become a swimming teacher or whatever it happens to be. So it's that impact, I think, that we can't measure. But I would say to people, you know, just nominate someone, because those are the kinds of things that, you know, might come from it.
No, that's amazing, and yeah, I think you put it better than I could have. So that's amazing, and I thank you so much for joining us and taking the time. That's really appreciated, and also, of course, Victoria as well. We'll try and leave some time for questions, because I can see there's some questions coming in the chat, some for you, Pippa, as well. But let me just, if I run through a few of our final slides, and then I can bring you both back on shortly, if that's all right. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on and sharing a bit more about your insights and feelings on the honour system. It's perfect. We'll move on just for some final slides, which will hopefully answer some of the questions that some of you put in the chat, but we'll try and leave some time at the end as well for that. So just reshare those slides. Perfect. So I hope you found that just as helpful as I did. And we're now going to look a bit more closely at who can be considered for an honour. So just very much going on from what Pippa's been talking about. So anyone can be considered for an honour, but at a minimum, we'd expect honours nominations to include examples that the individual has made a significant contribution to society or their sector or community, that they've gone above and beyond expectations. And we've used that word, you know, a lot of that phrase, above and beyond, because that really is the thing. If you can demonstrate that in your nomination, that will really help it stand out, and how they've made a positive impact and delivered significant outcomes. People aren't just recognised for doing their jobs, and decisions are always taken on a merit basis. So I think it's just important to bear that in mind. It is a very competitive process, so not everyone can be successful. But if you really show evidence of those 3 points, it'll help your nomination get off to a good start. And when it comes to writing a nomination, these are some tips which are based on the feedback we get from committee members, like Pippa, and it's what they like to see in nominations, and it's our sort of experience in the Secretariat as well of seeing which ones tend to be successful and which ones, sadly, are not. And just before I go through these, the character limit for nominations for the citation is 2,800, which might sound like a lot, but it's not. So you have to be really careful about what information you're including in the citation. So successful nominations generally have these qualities. They're not pages and pages. They use no more than sort of 2 to 3 recent examples anymore, and your citation starts to look a bit like a CV, which is not as helpful. Use plain English. Avoid acronyms, or at least spell them out for us so we know what they are. Because the person that's reading this nomination won't necessarily know any acronyms or understand any jargon, so just try to keep it in plain English for that. Tell their story. I think this is like one of the most important points. Try to make it interesting to read so that it really stands out from the competition. Every nomination is different, but it really must tell the story of the candidate and what they've done, and really, like Pippa was saying, sort of put it into context for those who are reading the nomination. And also on that, the nomination should be for the person and not their team. So you can obviously reference the team, but it is for the individual and not team effort. If you're making a public nomination, then you also need to include a couple of letters of support. So these could be from a senior person within your candidate's organisation or community. Could also be high-profile members of the community, so that might be an MP or a councillor, or just someone who regularly works with your candidate. So you'll need at least 2 letters, but you can include more as well. And these letters of support need to confirm that the person is doing what they're being nominated for, confirm that an honour is being supported by the community and by the organisation, and include significant recent achievements. So it's a chance to also include some other achievements which might not have made it onto the citation. So what to include? Well, these are just some questions that you should ask yourself when writing it. So what should they be doing versus what are they actually doing? Again, how are they going above and beyond? Why have they done this work, and why was there a need? And if the main body of the nomination is about their work, try to think if they do any volunteer work on the side. That might even be mentoring someone, or if they're also a trustee, or if they also fundraise for a cause. So try to think of all the other things outside of the workplace as well. And what's the geographical reach of the work? Is it a village? Is it a community? Is it a county? So how far does it go? And also timeliness as well. Committee members are keen for honours to be awarded in a timely manner, so don't hang around until someone retires to make that nomination. Do go ahead and nominate them. And then finally, just to make sure that everything is sort of full, factual, and accurate. If your nomination is successful, we'll need to do some checks on your nominee and contact them. So we also need their full name and personal address. Which leads on to confidentiality. So nominators are asked to undertake their inquiries in the strictest of confidence, and the nominee just must not know that they're under consideration at any time. And there's lots of reasons for that. I think maybe one of the more obvious reasons is that we don't want them to get their hopes up. It's a very competitive process, and it can take quite a long time, sometimes up to a year or over a year. So yeah, that's just one reason. So it has to be under strict confidence. Honours are also exempt under GDPR, which means you can provide us with their personal information without your candidate's permission. But of course, we ask you to take every care in ensuring that you hold personal information in complete confidence. And there's some more information on that on our website as well. And just as a sort of slide before I finish, and if you were going to take a screenshot of anything, I think this is quite a helpful one. This is just a nomination checklist. So when it comes to sitting down, you're about to make your nomination and write your citation, try to start and finish with a strong sentence. Make sure that all the information is relevant. Again, remember, there's only a character limit of 2,800. Highlight the individual's achievements, starting with the most recent and the most important. Check all the information is factual and up to date. Try to include dates, job titles, and actions to show impact. And include your candidate's influence on the practices of colleagues or on good practice across the community or profession. And then just provide as much evidence really as you can to support your nomination. So any relevant stats, outcomes, facts and figures, and details of change. So if you can stick with that, then it will definitely help your nomination to stand out. So definitely keep those in mind. I think we've already posted it in the chat, but that is our specific honours website at the bottom of that slide, where there's lots of information when it comes to writing your nomination. A lot of what we've just said here, all of it's on the website as well. So do check that out. And I think we've got just sort of 5 minutes where I can definitely open up to some questions. To notice there's been a lot in the chat. And then I would just like to highlight some of the other events that we have happening today as well, just before we finish. So let's have a look. So yeah, we can share the slides. That's absolutely fine. I think what we'll do is, and this talk is actually on our website, so you can also watch it again. And we've been recording this one as well. But yeah, we'll try and share the slides with everyone who's joined. That's fine. Yeah, someone else has asked that as well. So if you do have any other questions, please pop them in the chat now. I may have missed some of the earlier ones, and if that hasn't been answered. So yeah, so if I nominated a candidate for charity work, would I need to contact other parties for letters of support? Oh, that just came up. I clicked it. So yes, you can do. I think it's if you know, obviously you need to know your candidate's full name and their address. You can ask for supporting letters from people, potentially even if you don't know them. We just ask that you remind them that it has to be kept in strict confidence, so they can't tell anyone about those. But definitely, yeah, approach people. Yeah, I think why do some nominations not make it? I mean it is just a very competitive process, and there are 3,000 nominations that we sort of get every year, so not everyone can be successful. But I think it is just making sure that you you really highlight your person's achievements. And I would also say sometimes that maybe it's not the right time as well. I think someone posted in the chat earlier, can I nominate someone I've already nominated before? Absolutely. And then the committee will consider those as well. And maybe I promise I'd bring Pippa and Victoria back on. And maybe, if it's all right, Pippa, maybe I can ask you that as well. Do you have any thoughts on why sometimes nominations are not successful?
You know, we may find that there are occasions where, you know, for one reason or another, the timing isn't quite right. Or there are occasions where we, as a committee, we feel we haven't got quite enough information. And so one of the things that we will do is actually, as a committee, we will say to Secretariat, we think this person's really quite worthy, but we don't know enough about X, Y, or Z. So can you bring them back to the next meeting and find out some more information, get in touch with the person who's made the citation? I'm not quite certain what your role is in that, but it's a question that we ask as a committee. So some of the nominations that don't make it this time might make it in the future. Mostly the ones that don't make it, we just don't have enough information. That's, you know, when it comes down to it, it's I know you said there's a 2,800 limit, but there are some nominations that we get that are really short. And, you know, and if you get a nomination that says, you know, I'd like you to give my mate, or, you know, an MBE because he's doing a really great job. We want to know why and what, and some context and all of that. So I would say that it's usually down to a lack of information. And I know there's been lots of questions about deadlines in the chat bar as well. And I think that's the other thing, is there isn't really a deadline, because although there's a deadline for our committee meeting, if it misses one committee, it'll just come to the next committee. And I think that's the thing, is people put them in, and as I said, if it misses this meeting, then, you know, it'll just come along to the next meeting. So don't ever feel, I would say to members of the public, you know, don't ever feel like, oh, you've got to do it by Tuesday the 10th, or you lost your chance. So I hope that helps.
No, that's super helpful. Yeah, and I think, yeah, taking the time to gather all that information, which again is one of the reasons why we don't have any deadlines for public nominations. Yeah, no, absolutely, that's super helpful. Does anyone else have any other questions? Well, I think we've got 1 minute left. So, well, what I will say is there's lots of other events happening throughout this week. A lot of other opportunities to ask questions. We've got a range of sector-specific events happening for people who are in different industries. There's also a history talk. There's a talk on diversity, and there's also an independent committee honors panel as well, chat. So do try and attend some of these other events. Hopefully the tech will be better. I'm really sorry about the tech issues, but thank you, Victoria, for saving the day, really. We should get another MB just for that. But yeah, I'd just like to thank Pippa and Victoria so much for joining. It's really appreciated. I think it really helps to sort of bring it much more to life when we can hear from yourself. So that's been really helpful, and the comments have been really nice as well. I hope that this talk has inspired some of you to make a nomination. Please do go ahead, reach out to us if you have any questions. Do attend some of the other talks to find out a bit more. But in order for the honour system to be truly representative, we really need to see nominations from people of all walks of society, and we can only do that with your help. So do something amazing for someone amazing, and make a nomination. And thank you very much for joining. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Will.
Thanks,
Bye.
Will.